What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review, and today I am talking about the latest offering from Fleshgod Apocalypse, Opera. This also came out on August 23rd, this time on Nuclear Blast Records, and this is the band's 6th album overall, and, well, my experiences with this band, I checked out their album King back in 2016, if I can recall. I thought it was a pretty damn good album, and may have skipped over the last one that came out in 2019, which I can't remember the title of it off the top of my head. But here I am back at it again, and this is their first album since that 2019 album, so 5 years, and some changes have been made. They have a new second vocalist, Veronica, who's doing the female, like, soprano operatic vocals. And of course, yeah, Fleshgod being like a hybrid of symphonic metal and technical death metal from Italy. And, well, let's just say with this album, it's not just tech death and symphonic metal. I think there's more to it than just that. Like, this almost feels like somewhat of a death metal sampler platter, because after the opening track, Ode to Our Dei Sepulchri, which is this big, like, piano, opera, classical piece, it goes right into the real opening track, I Can Never Die, and immediately you get, like, some cool, tasty drums with, like, a big, giant build-up behind it, and on top of that, Nile-esque blast beats and tremolos, and I just went over the new Nile album yesterday, or at least that got posted yesterday as of this recording. I haven't checked out the new Nile yet. But yeah, there's some Nile-esque blasts and tremolos, not only on this track, but across the board. Like, Nile and Fleshgod at times can be very comparable when it comes down to leads and riffs and blasting. Them and also bands like Hour of Penance, Septic Flesh, bands along those lines. But I will say, Veronica's vocals, you know what, I'll touch more on that when we get into the overall synopsis of the album. But with this track, I Can Never Die, there's also like a nice groove section. Like, groove is something that kind of pops up a little bit more on this album than what I heard off of King when it came out 8 years ago. And dare I say, gets a little thrashy at the end. But then you get into Pendulum, where it's kind of more almost Death Doom forward, like this big doomy opening, and then you get more of these like doomy lumbering grooves that do alternate with like a quick fire tremolo and blast. And it does chug pretty damn hard whenever it gets down to it. Like, let's just stomp your face in with big chugs and classical music, and you're gonna like it. And I sure as hell did like it. Blood Clock starts off with this like beautiful acoustic classical guitar part, and then it gets back into like nasty low-end death metal tremolos, but with like thrash beats on top, before it gets back to being just bonkers with the technicality and the blast beats. Even some like low gothic chants, like Francesco Paoli. He's got an interesting vocal style. Like, his death growls are pretty strong, but he's doing these, like, low gothic chants. Makes me curious of whether or not he's going to do more of that on the next album. Big chorus. I gotta say, like, some of these choruses on this album are just gigantic. Not only in terms of, like, the vocals, but also whenever it blasts or gets very symphonic. It's, like, big and epic and grandiose. And then even like a nice, like, I don't know if you would call it a brutal death metal breakdown, but like a death metal breakdown towards the end. At War With My Soul, I love the intro build up to this track. It really builds up nicely, and it kind of settles into like a slow triplet chug that lumbers along pretty well, and it gallops along very nicely. And it borderlines again on like Death Doom at times. And yet another big death metal breakdown. Morphine Waltz. I love the beginning where you get this like cool interplay with the guitars and the piano. And then you get back in the blasts, back in the nasty death metal low-end tremolos. It's technical as shit, of course, because whenever it gets like hyper fast, it's like super complex and complicated. Then we get into Matricide 821. This one, kind of stands out on its own a little bit. Like, it kind of follows more of like melodic death metal. Like, this song, I got lots of nods to bands like Dark Tranquillity and Hypocrisy, especially. Like, it's more mid tempo, it's got somber feels to it, and yeah, it's very much closer to like a melodic death metal song rather than like straight up death metal or technical death metal or death doom. It's mostly like that Gothenburg inspired mellow death sound. Then we get into Per Aspera Ad Astra. I think I nailed that first try. It gets back into tech death, back into insanity. Groove returns once again, and then even a nice little tasty piano moment when everything else gets isolated, but the piano kind of builds up everything into the solo. And then the real closing track for me, Till Death Do Us Part, probably the most melodic, sullen song on the entire album. The closest thing to a ballad, I guess you could say, but it's not really a ballad. It's more of like a sullen, somber piece. It's melodic, it's doomy, almost like in vein of bands like Swallow the Sun, November's Doom, like that more melodic death doom type of style. That's pretty much what this song is, and it's mostly Veronica's vocals. Like, Francesco comes in on a couple of bars, but mostly it's all Veronica. Even some like atonal melodies come in too. And then the title track, the final track, it's mostly this big piano piece, and it is a grand ending. Although I feel like that should have been maybe in the middle of the album to kind of break up in between. I would say like At War with My Soul and Morphine Waltz. I feel like that could have, the song title track could have been in between those to kind of make a, like, give you a little bit of a breather. But as far as the lead work, like, the lead work is scorching on here. Like, you get melody, you get shred, even some like borderline David Gilmour moments. Like, especially in Till Death Do Us Part, that lead definitely could sound like something you would hear David Gilmour do, which is very, very tasty. The production, mixed and mastered by Jacob Hansen, who is a legend all across metal when it came down to production, as well as songwriting, because he is a great songwriter and musician. Now, as far as any complaints go, perhaps the kick drums might be a bit too overpowering, but again, with a style like this, you do want the kick drum to stand out. And the only complaint as far as like a song goes was in Morphine Waltz, where Veronica, it almost sounds like she was trying to fit in with what Francesco's doing like almost screaming vocals, and I thought, would have been better to have just let Francesco do that. It's like, nothing against Veronica, but stick to the operatic cleans. I don't know if screaming's quite in your DNA, at least not just yet. Maybe she'll work on more in the next album, she'll be better at screaming. But overall, I can't really find much of anything else to complain about. I am going to give this 4 out of 5. I thought this was a great offering from one of Italy's most, I would say, underrated bands going today. But of course, those are just my opinions. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thank you for watching. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.
Thank you for your patronage.